Hey, what's up, guys? It's your old pal, Mr. Cook, and we're going to do a review on circles. So part of the conic sections. All right. So first things first, you guys should remember that whenever we're dealing with a circle, we have an established equation for it. Here it is, right over here. And this is the standard form of a circle. We call it that because it already has established values and it gives you everything that you need to know to write out, and draw a circle and find its properties and all that stuff. The most important thing to remember, because I know there's a lot of variables here, x, h, y, k, and r, that h and k give you the center. So h and k, these two values right over here, those give you the center of your circle. And then r, right over here, gives you the radius. So if you have those two things, you can draw out a circle pretty easily. All right, so just remember that you have to have this formula. So if you don't have it, add it to your notes, or just some formula sheet that you might have established at this point. Okay, let's scroll down and do a couple of examples. Find the center and the radius, and then graph the circle. So once again, I'm going to write up the standard form for a circle. It looks like this: x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to the radius squared. So we need to find two things before we can start graphing this out. We need to find the center and we need to find the radius. Well, the center is really, really easy. It's just going to be a coordinate, right? And you find that by finding the h and the k values. So if we look over on our original equation right over here of the circle that we're looking at, we're trying to graph it out. The h value is going to be the opposite of the number that's inside of here. In this case, it's the opposite of 3, which would be -3. So that's going to be our x value on our center. And then also we take the opposite of the number that's inside of here to find our k value. The opposite of -2 is going to be a +2. And just like that, we've got the center of our circle. The next thing we need is the radius, and the radius can be found by just taking the constant value that this whole thing is equal to. That's going to be equal to r squared, the radius squared. So what we do to find the radius all by itself is, you guessed it, take the square root. So we get r is equal to +4. So we've got our radius, we've got our center. Now we can start drawing out our circle. So let's go ahead and draw it out. The center is going to be at -3, 2. So let's see here. I'm going to go up and down by 7 all over the place. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There we go. All right, so let's draw our center first. The center is located at -3, 2. So that's the left 3, 1, 2, 3, and then up 2. So it's like right around there. There's our center. And then the radius is going to be 4. So that means that from the center, I'm going to go to the right by 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That'd be able to point right over there to the right. I'm going to go to the left 4 from the center. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops, I don't know why I have the erase button. There we go. And then I need to go up by 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. So it's not going to look pretty because it's not like, perfect computer drawing of it or anything like that. But there's my circle. Looks kind of more like a deformed egg or something like that at this point. Then looks like that more than a circle. But that's the circle. And I know it is because I've already established the radius and also the center. So that's one of those cases where showing your work helps out an awful lot. Okay, let's move on to this other example over here. So the second example, x squared plus y squared equals 25. Let's again find the center and the radius of the circle using the formula. So the formula looks like this, once again, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Well, what the heck? It's kind of weird because I'm supposed to have an x minus h squared, but instead I just have this x. What's wrong with that? Well, this is still an equation of a circle, but it's a special case. And that's where the h value and also the k value are 0. So in other words, the center is located at the origin. Let me show you why that works out. So if my x value, in other words, if my center was located at 0, 0, if I plug it back into the equation, it looks like this. X minus 0 squared plus y minus 0 squared equals, and then the radius squared. Well, what is x minus 0 going to be? You guessed it, it's just going to be x. That's why it's just a little x right there. And then y minus 0 is just y. That's why there's just a little y right there. So that means that this is like when you see an x squared plus a y squared and nothing else, you know for a fact that it's a center that's going to be at 0, 0. So that's a really, really easy one to draw. There we go. Now let's figure out that radius. Well, the radius is pretty easy because, the same steps that we did before. The r squared part of it is equal to this 25. So that means that our r value, if I take the square root of both sides, is just going to be, oops, not 25, my bad. It's going to be equal to 5 because that's the square root of 25. So that means I'm going to go up, down, left by 5. So let me draw that out on my scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Okay, now let's draw the points going to the right by 5, up by 5, left by 5, down by 5, and then draw our circle, or close enough to what a circle looks like from there. There we go. Doesn't need to be perfect. There it is. Okay, let's see if we have any other examples down here. Looks like, yeah, a couple more. So let's try to put an equation for a circle with the following characteristics. So this is just putting the equation together. So I'm going to write the equation up here one more time. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to the radius squared. Okay, so for this very first example here, they give us the radius. That's the r value. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. Let's see here. Squared plus y minus something squared. And that is equal to the radius squared. And the radius was 7, so that's going to be a 7 squared there. Well, let me put these in different colors so we know exactly where we're plugging everything in. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we're going to use the center, zeros, and we plug in 0 for h, and we plug in 0 for k. And then we have our radius of 7, which gets plugged in over here. Those are the only things that you need to plug in to write out your equation. You might have to simplify it a little bit, but that's how you start the whole thing off. All right, now let's write up our equation. So x minus 0 is just x, so that turns into an x squared. Y minus 0 is just y, so that turns into a y squared. Then they're adding. And then we just do 7 squared, which is 49. There's our equation of our circle in standard form. Pretty easy, huh? All right, let's do the exact same thing with this information. So let's write up the stuff that we need to leave alone. X minus something squared plus y minus something squared is equal to the radius squared. Okay, so now we do our center, which is negative 1, 3. So negative 1 goes in for the x value, 3 goes in for the y value. And then we have a radius that is 2 square root of 7. Oh, that's kind of a weird one, 2 square root of 7 squared. Okay, let's just kind of evaluate it, see what we get. So we have x minus a negative 1, so that's the same as saying x plus 1. Then we have y minus 3 squared. And what the heck is 2 square root of 7 squared? Well, let's see here. 2 square root of 7 squared would mean 2 square root of 7 times 2 square root of 7. So we multiply the 2's together. 2 times 2 is 4. And then we multiply the square root of 7 together. Square root of 7 times square root of 7 is just 7. And 4 times 7 is 28. So that means that this thing squared turns into just 28. And there's the equation of our circle in standard form. All right, so that's a couple of examples, and I know that there are a couple more examples that you guys have access to in those worksheets. But that's basically how you do it if you didn't remember. And if you have other questions about this, obviously, bring up this review in your office hours, with your teachers, and then you can talk about the different things that you're supposed to remember from geometry. Okay, moving on to the next part, converting from general form to standard form for a circle. So this is the first part of our enrichment stuff. Okay, so we go over what general form looks like in the notes, but just to reiterate what that means is, like, imagine that you have an equation in standard form like this. This is a circle, right? Because it fits the circle formula kind of pattern. Well, what if some jerk foiled all this stuff out and then combined like terms? So basically, that's what general form is. It's like that jerk just, foils everything out or distributes everything out. And then at the very end, they want everything equal to 0. So check this out. Here, we're going to rewrite this expression in general form. So I'm first going to start off with this part over here, and I'm going to FOIL it out. So I get x plus 3 times x plus 3, because that's what x plus 3 squared is. So x times x is x squared, and then I have 3 times x, which is 3x. And then I have x times 3, which is another 3x. And then I have 3 times 3, which is 9. So that all turns into x squared plus 6x plus 9. Now I've got another one to worry about, and that's this y minus 2 squared. So now I'm going to do y minus 2 times y minus 2. FOIL that out, so I get, let's see, y times y is y squared. Negative 2 times y is negative 2y. Y times negative 2 is another negative 2y. Negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4. And when I combine like terms with those, I get y squared minus 4y plus 4, and then all that stuff equals 16. All right, so a couple more steps. I'm in general form. Watch this. So now I'm going to combine the constant values together. So I have x squared plus 6x plus y squared minus 4y, and then 9 plus 4 gives me a positive 13. And one last step, and that's to turn everything into 0. So set it equal to 0 one side. And the only thing I need to do for that is just subtract 16 from both sides. So watch, this turns into a 0 if I subtract 16 from both sides. So this part turns into a 0 finally. And then 13 minus 16 gives me the real value of the constants added up, which is going to be a negative 3. This is general form. So you can see that I can go from standard form to general form pretty easily. All I have to do is just like FOIL or distribute, whatever you want to call it. Is there a way to go backwards from general form to standard form? And obviously there is, because the next part of this note says, how do we get a circle equation from general form? And, I'll be honest with you, it's something that you're not comfortable with, something that you guys don't like for whatever reason. But the answer for this lies in completing the square. Yeah, I heard some of you guys go boo when I said that, but you know what? Big deal. It's not that bad. Sorry, I didn't mean to get loud, but yeah, I did. Completing the square is not that bad, okay? The problem is that like you need to complete the square twice on this. So it's pretty easy actually to do it for circles, and parabolas when you see that conic section. The only ones that are a little bit of a challenge are the ellipses and the hyperbola. But even then, if you practice it a little bit, it's not that bad. All right, so I'm going to run through how to do that real quick for these. So this is the enrichment stuff. All right, ready? Check it out. So let's complete the square on one of the variables. So what you do is you gather up all the x's and all the y's, and you move all the constant stuff to one side. So I'm going to move this 5 over here. So I'm going to add 5 to both sides of the equal sign. And then I'm going to group together the x's. So I have an x squared and a negative 4x. I'm going to group together the y's. So the y squared and the negative 2y. All right, so when I do all that, my equation looks something like this so far. X squared minus 4x plus, and then I got my y values, which is going to be y squared minus 2y. And then I move that 5 over to the other side. So all that's equal to 5. Okay, here we go. Ready? We're going to complete the square on this first. So what we do is we take the b value, which is this little negative 4 right here, and we just divide it by 2. So what is negative 4 divided by 2? Should be negative 2, right? So we're going to turn this into a perfect square with x minus 2 in it, okay? Now let's do the same thing. That does complete the square. There's one little thing that we need to do, and that's account for the extra amount that we added in here. We need to put that over here, okay? And we'll figure out how to do that in a second. All right, then we need to figure out what's going on with the completing the square for the y value. So for that, we do the same thing. We take the constant, and we take the coefficient that's multiplying on the degree 1 part of it, and that's going to be negative 2. So then we divide that by 2. What's negative 2 divided by 2? Negative 1. So that turns into y minus 1. Now this is a completed square term. but we need to account for the amount that gets added in at the very end there. So here's how we figure out that amount that gets added in. Take the number that we had here, which is -2, and we square it. So what's -2 squared? -2 times -2 is a +4. So 4 gets added in at the end. And then same thing here, we take the number that's inside with the y value, and the amount that gets added in there is -1 squared. So what is -1 squared? -1 times -1 is a +1. So 1. Then we just simply add up all these values, 5 and 4 and 1, and it gives us 10. And just like that, we have written it up in standard form. That was a lot of steps, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. But you know what? You practice it enough and it's really, really, really easy. See, watch, right? I'm going to do the same exact steps with this one over here. Okay, so the next example. So I'm going to group together the x values. I'm going to group together the y values. Wait, there's only a y squared and that's it. Hey, wait a minute. When I had a y squared all by itself, what did that used to mean? Maybe think back to the first page of the notes when we just had a y squared. We'll come back to that. And then we have to get rid of this -15. So we're going to add 15 to both sides. Okay, so what do we have? Let's rearrange this stuff. So we have an x squared plus a 4x. And then we have just a y squared all by itself. And then all of that's equal to a +15. There we go. Okay, so the first part, I mean, I know what to do with that. I just complete the square here. So I make a square, and then it's going to be x, and then I divide that by 2. +4 divided by 2 is +2. Okay, so that one's good. What about this? There's no, like, y value, is there? Well, even though it's not there, technically, you're adding on 0y, aren't you? Because if it's not there, it's like 0, basically. So 0y could be a thing. And, you could reason that it's still the same exact process. You take this number divided by 2, it's just that 0 divided by 2 is still just 0. So it's going to be y minus 0, or y plus 0, which would still just be y. So y squared. And then we need to figure out those numbers that we're going to add on. So it looks like we're only going to add on one of them because, the other one is just 0 because it doesn't really matter. So we take this number and we square it. What's +2 squared? That's 4. So we add up all these values and that gives us the last part of the standard form. 15 plus 4 gives us 19. So there's our equation in standard form. All right, a couple more. And we'll also have a full worksheet on this stuff, just, some extra practice for you if you want some of that neat enrichment stuff. This is the place to go. This is the place to get it. All right, so I've got my x squared here and a -2x. So I've got x squared minus 2x. I got my y squared and my -8y, so y squared minus 8y. Then I need to move that 8 over to here, so I've got a -8 when I subtract it over. Okay, now let's complete the square on all this stuff. So I take that and I divide it by 2, that's -1, so x minus 1. Take that, divide it by 2, that's -4, so plus y minus 4 squared. Then I got to add in those extra terms, don't I? So let's see here. -1 squared is 1. -4 squared, that's 16. All right, so let's add up all those values. -8 and 1 is -7. -7 plus 16, that's going to be 9. So there's our equation in standard form. And you can even read off all the stuff from it too. See, check it out. Like our center is going to be located at 1, 4. And then our radius is going to be equal to the square root of that, so 3. So we can even graph it out if we wanted to. Okay, last little part here. So this is actually a circle, believe it or not, in general form. It's just that it looks a little bit weird because of this, the fact that you have a 4 in front of the x's. So how do we get rid of that? Well, it's actually just one additional step that you need to do. And that is to divide everything by 4. So if I divide this whole entire equation by 4, what do I end up with? Well, the 4 goes away there, so I just have an x squared. 4 goes away there too, so I just have a y squared. 4 goes away on that one, so I just have a plus 1x. -8 divided by 4, that's a -2. And then I've got -19 over 4. Oh man, that sucks, a fraction. Jeez, come on, Mr. Cook, why'd you add that in there? Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and complete the square. So I've got an x squared, and then I've got a plus 1. Ooh, that's even going to be a little bit nasty, maybe. And I've got a y squared and a -2y. And I need to move this guy over to there. So let's go ahead and combine all this stuff together so we can start our little process of completing the square. I've got x squared plus x, and then I've got y squared minus 2y. And then I've got all that stuff is equal to, if I add that over, it'd be a positive 19 over 4. Okay, so let's complete the square here. Oh my gosh, what the heck? That's plus 1, right? So I gotta divide 1 by 2. Yikes. So that's going to be x plus 1/2 squared. Okay. Plus, I divide that by 2. -2 divided by 2 is -1. So that's going to be y minus 1 squared. And then let's see the two values that I'm going to add on there. Oh, geez, this isn't going to be pretty. So let's see, 1/2 squared. That's 1/2 times 1/2. So that's going to be 1 over 4. So that means I add on a fourth. And then a square -1, and that's just a positive 1, so that's not that bad. All right, let's add all this stuff up over here. So I got 19 over 4 plus 1 over 4, so that's going to be 20 over 4. Oh, wait, 20 over 4, that's just 5. And then 5 plus 1 at the very end, and that'll be 6. So 6 is what goes there. So there's our little standard form equation. So our center is located at -1/2, positive 1, and our radius is equal to whatever the square root of 6 is. Man, that's some crazy stuff, isn't it? All right, well, that's actually it for this review video, complete with a little bit of enrichment topic as well. So if you needed a review on your circles, there it all is. Learned how to graph a circle and find its different properties, the center and the radius, and then how to put together an equation of a circle in standard form, given a couple things like the radius and the center. And then we did some enrichment topics as well, mainly converting from general form of a conic into the standard form of a circle. And we'll continue with this process, like this is the enrichment topic that we're going to focus on with ellipses, hyperbolas, and parabolas. And that's converting from general form into the standard form of, one of your conic sections. All right, so that's it for this video. There's a couple of extra worksheets that are attached to this as well. All you need to do is either check on Schoology or yeah, I think it's on Schoology. Yeah, on Schoology, that's where you find it. All right, thank you very much. And if you need some additional help, make sure to reach out to your teacher during their office hours. They are more than willing to help you out in understanding this stuff. Okay, thanks guys, bye.